Maybe? Okay, good evening, everyone. Well, tonight, as I promised, I'm going to share with you some of the results that I got from actually qualitative study that I engaged students from Canada, United States, and here, Russia, and we'll find out what all those people think about brand Russia. But let me start first with the beginning. So what is actually nation branding, and what are the characteristics of one nation? Definitely history, definitely culture, heritage, location where we are, customs, achievements of their citizens, like all those sportsmen that can do wonderful things, all those artists that they can do wonderful things. And basically, in today's world, every country is competing with so many different countries around the world. So we have to find out, all of those countries have to find out the way how to get to the hearts and minds of all those people around the world. Okay, so now, do you know maybe how many countries in the world do we have? 200 approximately. Okay. 206. Okay. Any other estimates? 250. Anybody else? Less than okay, less than 250. Well, everything depends who counts and how do we count them and how they are registered and all of that. Very often we start with this United Nations, and there are like 195 members of United Nations, but as you can see here, all those different numbers based on who counts it and for what purposes. So it's, you have to compete. Let's say even 195 countries, it's a lot of countries that every single country has to compete with. So that's another reason why really working and thinking and developing nation brand is really, really important. Now, when we talk about branding, very often, what do we think? We think about the brand of the product. We also can think about the brand of the company. And as you can see here, we definitely have the most products. So that's why there are all those product brands, thousands and thousands and thousands and maybe millions. Then we have less corporate brands, obviously because there are less companies. One company can make 20 products, make 1,000 products, can make 10 products. Then we have regional and city brands, sector umbrella brands, nation brand, and then at the top it's supranational brands. So a lot of those different. Okay. Now, what brand image is? Everybody who knows who Nike is? Nike, okay. So when we think about Nike, Nike's fantastic brand image is the result of fantastic branding. That's one statement. And basically that is partially true, or maybe it's not really true, because Nike's fantastic branding image is the result of fantastic products sold in fantastically large numbers. And how do we do this? How do we achieve this? We definitely have to have product development and marketing. Now, think about one brand that comes to your mind. And now I will like you, when you think about that brand, tell me what comes to your mind. What are the characteristics of that particular brand? So,
just remembered from the last lecture Coca-Cola, and when I think about Coca-Cola, I just think about red bottles, and they are tasty and they are sweety, and most people like sweet things, so maybe that's why they are so popular.
we all need a little bit more energy this late at night. Anybody else can think about any other brand? Any brand that comes to your mind? It It can be a product, it can be a company, it can be whatever comes to your mind. Nikita can't wait to tell us. So,
Well, it's Apple because it's in my hands actually, and some associations. I guess the quality, uh, expensive, and um, I don't know how, maybe accuracy, and this image of Steve Jobs during his presentation, and that's the images which raises for me when I think about Apple.
thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
For some unknown reason, I remember Hello Kitty, and here's a fun fact: I don't know what the original product of Hello Kitty was supposed to be. I just remember the kitty.
Okay, so maybe you just remember that cute sound of that product. But as you can see, most of you mentioned a product. Nikita mentioned a company, and maybe even reputation. I would like here to focus because, you know, brands are sometimes about design, how the product looks like, what is the logo, and all those sorts of things. Very often with Apple, for example, it's really about the culture of the product as well. When you think about, let's say, Google, what do you think? What comes to your mind about their culture? Yeah.
So they're trying to be more like for everyone. They're trying to be more open compared to Apple.
Okay, that's good. And then finally, we can talk about actually products and corporations' reputation. You probably heard in your life very often, it's not easy to climb to the top, but it's actually very easy to fall down. And that's why it's very difficult to actually develop your reputation of the product, of the company, of the country, but it can actually be destroyed very, very, very fast. Now, in the past, we have this old paradigm, and basically the old paradigm was all about who can compete in this world. Well, in order for you to compete in this world, you actually have to have your military, you have to have your power, economic power, and you have to have your political power. But if we look around the world, and basically last week and this week, some of you were presenting those really powerful countries like United States, like China, like India, and like Japan. But there are a number of countries in the world. We just talked about that, 195, 200, 249. And there are much more smaller countries in the world than there are big countries in the world. And if we were just focusing on this old paradigm that you have to have military power, economic power, and political power in order to be actually able to compete in this world, then so many countries will be left behind. So now we are changing this paradigm by basically opening this market model where then nation branding is really going to be important because nation branding will actually bring more recognition of even small countries and make it possible for them to sell, to be successful, and to find their niche in this really, really huge global market. There are quite a few books about nation branding. I just put here one of those. And if you're interested in this particular topic, you can definitely start searching and find a lot of good information. What are the key concepts of nation branding? You are all young, and we are actually all young. We are always all young. And very often we all think about ourselves that we are the best, the smartest, the fastest, the best friend, the most intelligent, and all those sorts of things. But then we go to school, and then maybe we don't get all those best grades. Maybe then we go to university, and maybe we don't get that many friends. How can we get so many friends when we are the best, and everybody should actually like to be with us? Well, this is because all of us on individual level have this perception about who we are. But guess what? The rest of the world around us, the other students, the other professors, the other companies, the other countries, they also have perception about who we are. And very often what can happen is that we have this gap between what we think who we are and how the rest of the world perceives us who we are. And this nation branding is all about that. How do we recognize the gap that exists between our position, our image about ourselves, versus the position of others about ourselves? And then definitely once we discover this, then we have to deconstruct our nation brand image and to try to position us. And that's what we are going to do tonight. And actually, that is what we are going to show, that you guys came and with the help of other students from Canada and United States, what they came up with. So again, everything is about who I am, identity, how the rest of the world perceives me, image, and how do I position myself as a company, as a country. In this particular case, tonight we're talking about brand positioning of the country. Now, how many of you think that Russia is not perceived in the way that you will like Russia to be perceived? Okay. So why do you think the rest of the world is not perceiving Russia in the way that Russian identity is, or in the way that you think that Russia is? What's preventing?
Maybe stereotypes, which exist because of the lack of information and because I guess it's physically impossible to know everything about another country. So if someone lives in other place, they in some way always will be not quite accurate as Russians themselves. Well, probably about alcoholism and yeah.
Like beer as a pet.
Okay. Well, you're absolutely right. And you'll see in some of the answers of students coming from Canada and United States that they are actually disclosing their maybe ignorance of not knowing enough about Russia. Okay. Now, very important thing in life is always to recognize the problem, to identify the problem. What is also very important is to recognize what the real problem is. Because sometimes in business and in life or in any other field of human engagement, we may identify the problem which wasn't real problem. We maybe actually start working on resolving that problem, forgetting that actually we are resolving the wrong problem. So we have to start by first identifying those prejudices and these perceptions, and then actually we have to try to work on that. Now, I want to here say something about this narrative identity theory. Probably Russia is one of those very, very few countries that have really, really well-known and extremely developed literature. I'm not saying that other cultures don't have it, but this is really so prominent in Russian culture, is that voice of a writer, the voice of the poet. And there are all of them who can actually talk through their writings and communicate the image of the country through their writings. But there is something else here that I would like to emphasize, the power of narrative. And the power of narrative goes like this. and I would like you all to think about this. We live our lives according to the stories we tell about ourselves and others tell about us. Think about this. So we have a story that we tell about who we are. However, at the same time, the environment, the others have stories that they tell about us. And obviously, it can be a huge gap between those two stories. And it's very important to actually not stay in your own story, especially if the story is not a positive story, but actually to try to find a way how we can deconstruct, how we can reauthor the story. And so we'll find out how we can do that. Tell me something, how important history is in Russia. Sorry? Very important. Okay, Dennis, I haven't heard you for a while. So tell me something about the importance of history.
Well, Russian history is like very important for students in Russia, as our governmental problem wants us to think. And it's also quite long, so why can't it be important? From the 9th century. And could you please be more like in the conclusion?
So I will be more specific. So we are today in 21st century. And so if you like somebody to know something, to learn something about Russia and to understand Russia, and you start telling them about your history starting in the 9th century, what do you think? What is their capacity of understanding, comprehending the history that lasted that long?
As me, I think that history in Russia is a very strange topic, because we had like Imperial Russia, and then we have Soviet Russia, and now we have modern Russia. And the contemporary Russian identity is like a mix of Imperial Russia and Soviet Russia, and it's like very strange for me.
I think all other nations have the same situation with their history. It's like construct which created by government because history is the things that unite nation, and it helps government to unite us and to feel us like only entity.
I think this is still about the importance of art, because it's not like people are randomly memorizing some numbers or data. It's still how history is being observed through the art, because they remember the stories, like the poems and so on and so on.
Okay, I just wanted to say that the importance of the history also, if we're talking about nations branding, that's also related with the nations branding, because when we're talking about Soviet Russia, it would be more negative relations with Russia, because like the Soviet Union was too strong, was angry, and so on. And also we have, for example, Russian Empire which were close enough for European culture, and there we can manage some like facts, and with a certain approach we can give different colors of our history and make different picture for other countries as a national brand.
I would like to highlight once again Leona's point about these contradictions, and Russian historians have a really interesting and difficult task. They're trying to avoid all sharp sides and support Nikolai II and Lenin at the same time, and it's quite difficult, and that's why it's so contradictions, and there are a lot of contradictions, and it's really not an easy task to explain foreigners who is bad and who is a good guy, like Lenin or Nikolai II.
And speaking about historians, basically, we're not studying history, we're studying how historians perceive this history and portray that in the sources. And actually, well, it's hard to name it actually Russian history because my father shared with me an information that uh, like Nikolai II had like 2% of Russian actual blood. So because of that, multi cross country marriages, it's all mixed. And also, well, I think that those things which are portrayed in the history books, history uh, for the studying, they're also influenced by the government and also. And when I was talking with one Japanese guy, he said, I don't actually like Russia. I said, why? He said, well, because they dropped the bomb on Nagasaki. I'm like, but we didn't. He's like, but that what was said to us. So it's not that easy.
Okay, thank you. Well, this was, I was thinking this was not that difficult question, but it's definitely a very difficult question. And of course, your discussion was very good because one who is coming from another part of the world can see that this is very difficult to explain to yourself. And I'll think about trying to explain that to somebody who is outside the country. We will again, we have one image about ourselves, and then the rest of the world has another perception about ourselves, and now we want to deconstruct that image, and sometimes we have certain power of that and sometimes we don't. So let's see who is influencing that image about one country. Well, we can start with personal experiences. I noticed that a few of you have traveled abroad. And then when you were traveling, let's say to Thailand, you traveled to Turkey, maybe your perceptions about the country were one, but then when you went there and returned, maybe your knowledge changed slightly. Word of mouth. Basically, if people start talking about one country and they have that positive image about the one country and they start disseminating that image around the world, that can actually give very, very big, it can have a very big impact. One example of that was when there was, people here like football? Okay. So when there was actually a World Cup in Germany, that World Cup in Germany transformed the image of Germany, and they really work hard in order to transform the image of Germany. What do you think? What usually people think when they talk about Germany? Let's say one Germany now. Okay, yes. Konstantin, let's hear Konstantin.
I think like strong national manufacturing, good football, great beer, and stuff like that.
We want to ask an expert of Germany. Let's ask an expert of Germany. What do you think? What people think about Germany?
Mostly cars. Mostly cars. Mostly cars, but then of course, at least in Eastern Europe, history arises. Yes, and not so long ago we had a war. So,
Yes. Okay, that too. What about Germans? Are they like smiling a lot? Are they funny or are they serious?
depends in comparison with whom. With perception is that they are very, very, very serious and they don't laugh. And they have very specific sense of humor, which is not very funny.
Okay, thank you, Jan. So what we have here, we have the perception of Germans. They generally say life is too serious to laugh. I mean, it's nothing to laugh about. Life is too serious. So think about that perception of Germans that we all said that indefinitely, Second World War, being serious and all of that. Now the Germans work on transforming that by what? By making all those people visit actually Germany during the Cup, but also word of mouth, because they knew if one person was happy in that World Cup, that person can influence 200 other people. Now think about how many people actually came to Germany for this World Cup. And does anybody remember how did that German Cup look like when there was that World Cup over there? Anybody remembers? Okay, you remember who won. And what do you remember?
I remember being a 7-year-old watching football, so it was really hard to think about Germany at the same time. But yeah, but I guess it was just the unity, you know, when people are playing football, competing with each other. It's always good.
Well, but what was happening at that time, I'm a little bit older, so I remember. What was happening at that time is that very, very unusual. They actually have a different location, different plazas, downtown, different cities. They have celebration of football. So it's not only people who can afford and buy the tickets. It was actually now the whole society. They were having almost like a festival outside. And that completely changed the image of this Germany being that serious, those Germans never laughing. And it was very, very positive. Definitely we have those national stereotypes. Politics is going to influence culture, a country's image, sports performance is export, behavior of citizens. I want to touch upon of this behavior of citizens because it's really, really very important. Each of you are ambassadors of your country, no matter when, where you are. So think about that. And I'm going to share with you one story that really impacted my life. When I was a student like you, at that time we had in the world a very serious economic crisis, and it was the second oil shock. And that second oil shock basically meant that the prices, general level of prices, inflation went up, and there were a lot of countries who wanted to save. And for all of you who are taking economics, we talk about that exchange rates and devaluation and appreciation and all those sorts of things. But now we have a visiting professor from UK. And obviously United Kingdom is a very rich country. And no matter how professors are paid around the world, he definitely had more money than our professors had at the time. Because I was living in Belgrade, Serbia, Yugoslavia at the time. And he actually went to one conference that was hosted by the country. He came back, and then he gave us a lecture. And he basically said the following: I didn't spend money. And we were all looking at him. Come on. I mean, it's like, why didn't you spend money? I mean, like, why didn't you buy this or that? And he said, no, my country is saving. And I know that every pound that I'm going to spend is going to influence the value of the currency of British pound. And that's not in the national interest of my country. Now think about that. One person thinking about national interest and his behavior. So our behavior, no matter where we are, is really representing our country. Nation brand campaigns we definitely have, and that's pretty much what brings us to this really country's image. Who can influence all of that? This person, Simon Anholt, is one of the probably key figures in this area of nation branding. And he basically said the following: people look at countries in a very much the same way as they will look at the products. a whole lot of attributes. They have positive, negative about countries, and we think about them in terms of simple narrative. So now we have actually to pay even more attention to this brand image. And this is the question that I gave all of you, and this is the question that I gave all the students in Canada and in the United States, that is very often used for branding a product. And the question is kind of simple. If brand X were a person, what kind of person would it be? So you all know that I gave you the same question, but instead of the brand X, I gave you, if Russia were a person, what kind of person would it be? And I gave the same question to the students in Canada, and we'll switch now. And United States. Approximately in UTMN, there were maybe 38 students who responded. In Canada, I have more than 50 students, and in United States, I have only 13 students who responded to this question. And now we are going to start with what Russia thinks about Russia. So this was that question. And now let's hear and see the answers. We were not quite sure if it is a man or a woman. So some of you said a man, some of you said a woman, some of you said, either or. And so these are some of your answers. She is strong. She can stop the horse, can enter the burning hut. She has the husband who loves drinking vodka. A talented worker with gold hands and always drunk. Old guy who does not like the future. A middle-aged woman or a man who has been disillusioned with life but has not lost faith in good. So those were the answers from Russia about Russia. And then when I combine some of your general answers, some of you said that it has a split personality. And it's patriotic, it's confident and smart, brave, sometimes reckless, desire to be a leader, prefer to solve problems by his own. It's conservative. All new foreign seems to her something distant and alien. It's depressive. It's secretive. It's stubborn. So those are all your answers, so you shouldn't be surprised. Now, devoted friend. This is very powerful. A devoted friend when you get close, but not someone you would want to be rivals with. With his friends, Russia can smile and joke. However, if you are not a friend, this rule works. If fighting is inevitable, hit first. Okay, so, and the right thing, but. The kind of guy that is usually trying to do the right thing, but pokes his nose into people's personal business where he is not wanted. Helping others before helping himself. Russia loves helping everyone, even if it might hurt her. And he is one of those friends who will help to solve the problem but does not solve his own. So very, very interesting when I try to combine all your answers. So those were generally most often ones that you gave. Now, I'm going to start with this statement from students from Canada because they do say, we see so many stereotypes on TV that don't really show how successful both countries have been in their own ways. So let's see what Canadians are thinking about Russia. My name is Russia. I'm loud and I like to be heard. I prefer to do what I want and when I want. I don't always find it necessary to ask the opinions of others because I don't really care. Some people say I'm a bully, but I don't think so. I just think that I like things the way I like them, and why change that? Another one. I cannot get the image of a spy out of my head when I think of Russia. Now, when I combine all of the other answers, Russia is strong, extreme, demanding, independent, proud, aggressive, bold, tough, not empathetic, cold, unethical, secretive, smart, well-educated, and athletic. Okay. So what do you think so far about perceptions from Canada about Russia? Surprised or not surprised? Not surprised. Okay. Now, different views. Russia is powerful, focused, determined, and straight to the point type of person. Slightly intimidating person, yet loyal and focused on taking care of their family and friends. Hard worker with minimum flexibility, narrow-minded. In some cases, they can be rude, harsh, and dishonest, and a dirty player person. They want their way and are concerned with who is hurt in the process. Proven and able to support themselves without additional assistance or influence. This is actually the student who visited Russia, so he was now sharing his perception about Russia before he actually went to the country. Prior to ever traveling to Russia, I had a great number of presumed conceptions based on the media. However, Russia was actually a really great country to visit. Now, I would like to start with Konstantin because he's a business person. So, are you surprised with any of those qualifications coming from Canada about Russia?
Not really, because of the media. And I think this is those opinions comes from the TVs or newspapers, and if you want to really know someone, you need to come and visit. Yes, I'm not really surprised.
Can I ask Julia if you're surprised with the perception of Russia coming from Canadians?
I'm not surprised. I think I don't know. It's just an idea that I have. And I think like blonde, blue-eyed people are very generally perceived as cold and strong and clever and.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else would like any comments here? Okay. Now let's go to US and see how did they perceive Russia. What do you think? What were their perceptions? As good as Canadians? Better? Worse? Okay. Now here are the perceptions from United States. I see Russia as more middle-aged, like in their 50s, where they're set in their ways and have a plan and working through it. I do not see them very open to change and very focused. An easygoing business person that believes in quality of life and environmental sustainability. Family and culture oriented and offer a warm smile like when you go to your grandmother's house for the holidays. I see Russia as the quiet kid that sits in the back of the class, takes notes, and does not speak unless it pertains to them. Russia would be the one that sits back and people watch and plan their demise. I do not see them very open to change and very focused. I see them as quiet and sit back and watch and learn from others. I took 2 years of Russian language in high school and I absolutely adored the history of the country. This student actually had a professor who was a defector from Russia, and the professor did not have a positive opinion of the role of government in the country. This person tends to sit in the background and provide quiet yet forceful influences to their friends and acquaintances. Russia is also the scapegoat for the untitled US individual and is commonly viewed as the cause for all their mistakes. And this one, I see them as very strategic and calculated in their actions. I do not feel as though decisions are made in the spur of the moment, but rather dragged out and carefully executed. And I wanted to add with this one, and I put it here to truth be told. This is from one student. Unfortunately, we are inundated with Russian conspiracies, invasions, unfair practices, etc. Its brand is not one that I would like to be friends with. Now again, I don't know much about the country. Truth be told, if I were to meet this country, I may appreciate some of the culture, food, people, and customs it has to offer. Who knows? And I actually purposely, obviously, ended with this one because it really demonstrates the openness of the students and the recognition that they really do not know much about the country firsthand, and then definitely that bad image that the country has, not only because of the 2016 elections, but a little bit further back, is really one that if we have a chance to go to another country, if we have a chance to meet somebody from that country, maybe our perceptions will change. And that's why I'm always really big advocate of international study abroad. If you ever have, and I know that few of you have an opportunity to go abroad this spring, definitely take those opportunities because you will learn so much about other cultures and other countries. Okay, now, were you surprised with the results from the United States?
Yes, I was surprised because of this position that Russia is the white students who is on the back, because we have so many contradictions in the past, especially with the United States and the Caribbean crisis and the Cold War, and now the situation is not really calm and warm. And why they think that we are just somewhere in the back, while in fact we are constantly in struggle with them, like not we but our government with their government, and I don't know why they think that we are so quiet.
Interesting that 3-4 of them mentioned that. So it wasn't that they were copying from each other's papers, but really interestingly that few of them did mention that and did see the country. Any other surprises?
I was really surprised by the fact that they mentioned that Russia is a open businessman or something, because I'm myself not surprised by the image of like a quiet kid, because it's really, I think, connected with the image of spy and this like charismatic leader, like informal leader who Putin is, for example. Yeah, and but the fact that we are imaged as open-minded people that are ready to like open to new things, I think is really it's a positive surprise for me. Yeah.
Okay, so there are some positive surprises. Anybody else? Any would like to say something? Okay, just a second.
Yeah, I want to emphasize one fact that we also have to keep in mind that maybe some segments of the population. So you have served students. Maybe they are educated, maybe they know much more than the lowest class in the society. So I think it's also the matter.
That's absolutely a great point, because definitely demographics is important. I mean, who do you ask? And obviously, and there were actually a little bit older students because they're MBA students. So they were not your age, they were a little bit older than you are. Okay, then let's switch to the first one. Okay, I want to start with this one because it starts here, the FIST, and it stands for Fully Inclusive Stakeholder Approach. So basically, if we are thinking about nation branding and who is responsible, who should be engaged, actually there are many, many different stakeholders here. Definitely government is on the top, but we have public sector, we also have private sector, we also have us as citizens. We are also stakeholders. Not-for-profit organization, trade association, chamber of commerces, tourism board, inward investment, economic development agencies. So it has to be coordinated message for all of them. Because sometimes what can happen is that one of those entities, one of those stakeholders is having one message, but the other stakeholder is completely having a different message, which can really, really bring a lot of confusion to potential investors or people who may be interested in coming here, tourists, you name it. We can do this one. This is a very short one.
And as the Deputy Prime Minister said this morning, this thing called image is far too important to be left to government. It's far too important to be left to business. It's far too important to be left to civil society. Nothing less than a functioning coalition of all three: the people who own that brand, the businesses who profit most from that brand, the government that creates the policy environment in which that brand can prosper. Then things can start to happen. Nothing is more important than reputation in the modern world. Nothing is more significant for a country that's trying to emerge in the global marketplace. Nothing is more serious, and nothing is less superficial than image. We have to get to grips with it. We have to make it measurable. We have to stop it being magical. We have to know where we're going and why we're going there, and how we're going to get there. We have to know what success would look like if we achieved it, and we also have to be quite sure that any money that we spend on it is money that is well spent and for the right reasons, because it has a measurable impact on the end result.
This was that important guy that really did a lot for nation branding and promotion of nation branding as a concept, Simon Anholt. Now, why branding a nation? I'm going to present to you one very, very interesting case, and it's a case of Africa. So this is one of the pictures that I came across that explains Africa. And for some of you that know that I really like also photographs, and we use one with Brexit, you're going to see one with Africa in the eyes of the same economist in 2000 and in 2012. So what can you tell me about those two images that are coming from the same magazine this time? One is from 2000, this one, The Hopeless Continent, and one is from 2012, Africa Rise. Explain to me those two pictures, symbols. What are they all about?
At the first picture we see some wasteland that this country have no future, and on the second we see this hope and some positive changing.
Excellent. And you can now just think about it. What will be the effect on potential investors that are looking around? Where should I put my money? Where should I start foreign direct investment? Should I reconsider this continent as a potential? I have to share with you, because in this 2012, I was in Africa and I was attending the conference in Johannesburg in one of their really, really very, very important universities. And there was a relatively young white professor who was very enthusiastic. and based on this pretty much cover page of The Economist. And see, what he said was really interesting, because he said, in the past, when I was traveling abroad and somebody would ask me where I'm coming from, I would never tell them that I'm coming from South Africa. He was very, very ashamed because of the perception that that country, stereotype that that country actually had for so many years. And he said, this year, I'm so proud to say I'm South African. So this is what nation brand can do for you. And again, one of the images, we talk about those images. If I put this image on the cover page of one of the most prestigious economic business magazines in the world, is telling you there is always war there, and another one with wonderful sunshine and the country, the continent on the top, obviously is going to give you different images. Now, what is your perception when somebody tells you Africa? What comes to your mind first thing? Yeah, about Africa. Okay.
Poor people.
Poor people. What else comes to your mind?
Deserts, maybe jungles, and some people that run almost without clothes.
Countries with excellent investment climate. For example, Rwanda.
Okay.
I'm thinking as a British, so gold.
Okay, it's always good that you disclose your alliance with. Well, very often when people think about African continent, particularly in the West, it's really where is my? Oh, she's not in this class. Okay. Very often we have civil wars, malnourished child, AIDS, epidemics, starvation, drought, famine, genocide. Nothing positive. Now think about it. If you are a country in Africa, and the first thing that somebody thinks about your continent, they don't think about your country, they think about your continent, and they come up with this one. So that's why it becomes very, very important, and that's why it becomes very important to have nation branding, but it also comes very important to try to change this narrative. You remember that I said there's actually the special field in psychology, and it's called narrative therapy. And that's those two words are the base of that narrative therapy. We live our lives according to the stories we tell about ourselves and others tell about us. So if others are telling the story about this starvation, this civil war, this malnutrition, that's definitely not very optimistic for any economic development, and not only for economic development. And I put here that Africa really suffers from this continent brand defect because of those associations that are all negative with this continent. And again, very often people are thinking about Africa, they are not thinking about one particular country. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
But is it so? Because I think that the perception of Africa is like Arabic countries, like sub-Saharan, or how to say it, and other continents like Libya, Egypt, and other Arabic countries are like at the different level, as I know from the previous course.
Oh, that is true. I mean, obviously, actually, maybe, the north of Africa is maybe not regarded as Africa, this is geographic Africa, but the rest of them are pretty much with all of those problems. And again, this is what I put here, that definitely because the whole continent does suffer from this really continent defect, and they need to change that. And how they're going to do, there are two ways. You can change the image or promote the brand image of your own country, but I personally think that you have to work together with other countries to promote the image of the whole continent. Why is brand important? Believe it or not, brand actually has its own value. And as I put it here, the brand of a country has a direct impact on the wealth of the nation in its ability to compete and grow in the global economy. Now, we have been talking in this course a lot about globalization, and basically what countries want to do. They want to sell something, to sell products and services. So they want to push out product, services, policies, cultural ideas, or they want to attract foreign direct investment, and so they want to pull in through foreign direct investment, tourism, and so forth. So how do they do that? And what do you think? Country like United States or country like France, if do they have a strong brand image or a low brand image or a weak brand image? And what is that brand image? Let me put it differently. Will you pay more from the product that is coming from US, or will you pay more from the product that is coming from Bangladesh? Sorry? From US. And why you're going to pay more from the product of US? Because of the image of United States. It is highly developed industrial country, and then it has good quality products. And maybe that product really can be the same quality. However, because of this discount, if the country's image is weak and the premium is strong and positive, you are going to get this positive premium if the image of your country is good, which basically means you can charge more for your products if the country has a better image in the world. So now those are some soft factors world. You have different countries here. And then definitely visitors are really our best promoters of the country. And there are different nation brand strategies that can include culture, nature, unique product, talent, and so forth. Because you like Britain, I have to put this here, like British food. Nation food branding is becoming more important. But I want to share with you something that just came out this week. It's city branding is becoming more important. What do you think? Which city was selected as the most attractive tourist destination in this year? Okay, so we have London. What are any other city? LA, okay. Any other city? New York, any other city? Paris, okay. Now you will be surprised. Can we play this video? I don't know if I put it that you can play, but if you can just cut and paste maybe. No, if you can cut and paste. I didn't click. No. If you can just cut and paste, because I probably didn't.
Внимание! Говорит и показывает Москва. Работают все центральные каналы телевидения. Смотрите и слушайте Москву.
Okay, I know that here we have a few students that are experts in media and film, and I would like to hear from you. How will you evaluate this video?
Well, I think that this video reinforced this image of Russia. I think it's still strict. Just hear the sound. Yeah, and so.
Okay, now for all of you who are studying this film and media, what did you learn from film and media? How do Russians like their movies to be? Okay. We have a professor here, okay.
Well, I find it difficult to understand the message of the short video that we saw.
Okay, anything else? I actually heard from the professor who is teaching film, the another professor from the United States, and he basically said that the Hollywood movies had to be changed for the Russian audience because in Russia they prefer tragic movies, so they have to change the ending, and maybe that's why this movie is coming. Good question about what did they want to achieve with this one. And my perception about the video is that, I haven't seen any single person here. And this is about the tourism, and you should be seeing people, not only buildings. So obviously something that we all have to think about when we are branding. And I know that you guys are taking this this concentration in school, so we are counting on you to make even better movies and videos and promotional material. Okay. Now, these are some of the brands that come to one's mind when they think about US. Google, American Express, Facebook, you can actually put Apple. When we think about Japan, and you were presenting Japan, so Tanya.
Yeah, I would also add Mitsubishi.
Obviously, Mitsubishi is missing, and then Germany, nobody was presenting Germany, but Jan said that when we think about Germany, we think about cars, cars, and cars. Pretty much cars. Okay, now I need your help here. When we think about Russia, what do we think about as far as companies, as far as those brands that somebody here see that brand, they immediately know this is Russian?
Kalashnikov.
Gazprom, exactly Gazprom.
Okay, anything else? Okay, but it was bought now, but that's what I want to say. I was thinking about same Yandex that I have to take every single day to get here, but it is actually bought by Uber. So anything else?
probably Vkontakte or Telegram, because they're made by Russian. Oh, also like talking seriously, alcohol and cars maybe. Yes, some people know Russian cars actually, and there are countries that Russian cars are important into.
You know who knows about Russian cars? Canadians. Because of the cold weather. They used to be sold over there because of the cold weather. I mean, they also have cold weather. And so that used to be. So definitely, we have to have this, recognition and understanding that, we want to have and promote most of those companies that somebody, when they say Russia, when they say this company, everybody knows that that's a Russian company. Like when everybody, says Apple, everybody knows that that's American company. Now, there are different institutions and different measures and different indexes that are measuring this nation branding. And I'm going to show you a few of those. So one of those is Brand Finance Nation Brand Index. And as you can see here, not all the countries are part of this research. And each of those indexes are measuring actually different things. So that's why they are not compatible with each other, and you always have to look what are they looking at. For example, brand profiling, they're looking into infrastructure, efficiency, brand equity, economic performance. And this in particular is focusing on investment. So if we want to evaluate how a good, positive brand of the country is, we are going to look how much foreign direct investment goes to that country. How many tourists that the country is going to receive? What about their products? How recognizable they are? And finally, talent. Can we attract foreign talent to come to our country to work for us? So that's what this one is basically focusing on. And then based on that, in 2011, United States brand was the most successful. And as you can see here, sorry. That was really too fast. Okay. And as you can see here, they were actually attaching the dollar value to that brand. And then Germany and China and Japan and United Kingdom. So this was 2011. What do you think about 2017? Has any of these countries dropped, increased their position? Any changes that you can expect? Yeah.
Maybe USA was dropped because of Trump.
Okay, maybe. Anything else?
I also think India increased because of external policy.
Yeah, and as I understood it right from your graph, United Kingdom also dropped.
Okay, that's okay. Come on, China, Team China. What do you think? What happened with China? Jan, what do you think? Went up. So now this is nation branding in 2017. Actually, as you can see, Germany dropped and China got up. UK was fifth and here was fifth the same. But actually, this was a big move for China. And where is India? Number 8. Let me just see. Oh, sorry. So actually, India did increase. Good. Thank you for that. Now, anybody has good eyes, I want you to catch fast the position of Russia. That was in 17. And now this is the latest one. Or 18. Okay. So it is actually quite high. It's not first 10, but it is still high. This is another measure that is also measuring the nation brand, but they're using, again, different measures. It's called future brand, And what they're looking at is like how aware people are about particular country, how familiar they are with a particular country. What are their associations? If we say Russia, what do they associate with? Preferences, consideration, do I want to visit that country? Decision, visitation, advocacy, will I be advocating for this country? And what does the index measure in 2019? So these are the characteristics that they were looking at in this year. Dimensions of purpose, value system, quality of life, business potential, and dimensions of experience, heritage and culture, tourism, and made in, US, made in China, made in Russia. So based on all of this, they have their own top list, and Russia is not here on this top list of 20 countries, but Japan is here. And what you're seeing, depending on what we measure, the countries are going to change their positions. Because obviously here they are measuring something else differently than they were measuring in the first one. And as you can see in this one, US is at the 12, but look at what they were measuring. They were measuring value system, quality of life, business potential. Most of those countries here, if you look, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, out of 10 countries, 8 are coming actually from Europe. And in particularly, Norway, Sweden, and Finland are scoring very, very high, because if you know something about those countries, they're always very often used as the ones with the quality of life and value system. So, am I going to? Okay, Russia is 27 here. Again, in this other one, it was 18. Here is at the 27th position. Now, the future belongs to. So now in 2012, we were in this future brand, they were focusing on good government, investment, human capital, growth, sustainability, and influence. But then look at here. The future belongs in 2019. This one, they were more talking about high quality of life for their citizens. Again, their measurement is changing as well. And again, the guy that I talked about, I mentioned his name a few times, Simon Anholt. Basically, what he's focusing on tourism, export, governments, investment in immigration, culture and heritage, and people. And based on those factors that he is measuring, he has this list that Germany is number 1 in 2014, and in 2016 it's United States, so there was swapping places. And pretty much all those countries are swapping places, this one and this and this. So, and he doesn't measure all of them. So, now this is the latest one, and it's called the Good Country Index. So what will be the Good Country Index? From nation branding, now we are switching to good country. Basically, what we want to find out here with this measure is like how much is particular country contributing to the world versus their GDP, and versus how much they're actually in a certain way hurting the world. And this one, maybe if we can go to this site as well, and then.
I've been thinking a lot about the world recently and how it's changed over the last 20, 30, 40 years. 20 or 30 years ago, if a chicken caught a cold and sneezed and died in a remote village in East Asia, it would have been a tragedy for the chicken and its closest relatives, but I don't think there was much possibility of us fearing a global pandemic and the deaths of millions. 20 or 30 years ago, if a bank in North America lent too much money to some people who couldn't afford to pay it back, and the bank went bust, that was bad for the lender and bad for the borrower. We didn't imagine it would bring the global economic system to its knees for nearly a decade. This is globalization. This is the miracle that has enabled us to transship our bodies and our minds and our words and our pictures and our ideas and our teaching and our learning around the planet ever faster and ever cheaper. It's brought a lot of bad stuff, like the stuff that I just described, but it's also brought a lot of good stuff. A lot of us are not aware of the extraordinary successes of the Millennium Development Goals, several of which have achieved their targets long before the due date. That proves that this species of humanity is capable of achieving extraordinary progress if it really acts together and it really tries hard. But if I had to put it in a nutshell these days, I sort of feel that globalization has taken us by surprise, and we've been slow to respond to it. If you look at the downside of globalization, it really does seem to be sometimes overwhelming. All of the grand challenges that we face today, like climate change and human rights and demographics and terrorism and pandemics and narco-trafficking and human slavery and species loss, I could go on. We're not making an awful lot of progress against an awful lot of those challenges. So in a nutshell, that's the challenge that we all face today at this interesting point in history. That's clearly what we've got to do next. We've somehow got to get our act together, and we've got to figure out how to globalize the solution. It would have been a tragedy.
Just want to put a introduction of his speech, and then maybe later on you can look at this one, because he is introducing what that index is all about, definitely trying to expand our focus of what we need to look into it. And I want to end with the first video about Germany. So it's at the very, very beginning. This one really sums up well what nation branding is and how powerful it can be.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. It would be a tragedy if our World Cup was focused on personal enrichment rather than an opportunity to promote our country on the world stage. Perhaps there are lessons to be learned from Germany. Germany 2006. Over 2 million visitors came, waved, drank beer, ate Wurst, screamed, and even cried. The 18th FIFA Soccer World Cup transformed the image of Germans like no other event since 1945. From humorless to carefree in 30 days, Germany has reinvented itself. FIFA President Sepp Blatter says it was the best World Cup of all time. Our president says we won't just match it, we'll raise the bar.
The 2010 FIFA World Cup.
But the great excitement and national pride in South Africa on winning the bid 3 years ago has changed. Can we really achieve that goal? Are our fears justified? Will the stadiums be finished in time? Can our transport system sustain the expected crowd? Will crime ruin the party? These are some of the doubts and the questions we may have about World Cup 2010. But Germany had its own problems preparing for last year's showpiece of the beautiful game.
The German media were also very critical. Are we ready in time? Are the stadiums safe? And there were problems. Of course, we also had problems.
Well, it was tough because there were a lot of critics and a lot of pressure on us. We knew that it was very important for all the nation to play a good World Cup.
Es war so, dass natürlich Image-Studien studiert worden sind.
Die Deutschen, wie schon gesagt, ernst, wenig humorvoll, pünktlich, diszipliniert.
The mood was so bad that the media coined the term Konsumverweigerung. People refusing to consume, not buying new homes, not buying new cars, record unemployment.
Dr. Nicholas Ebel is a brand historian specializing in nation building. The Cinderella story he witnessed in his hometown Berlin and the 11 other host cities in 2006 inspired him so much.
I just had to lock myself away and analyze how did Germany manage to transform their brand image so dramatically.
What did the World Cup do for that country?
It transformed the archetype of the ruler, being efficient and effective, but fairly cold, unfriendly, conservative, into the new image of the lover. Outgoing, friendly, welcoming, hospitable, fun, modern, and innovative.
And it doesn't happen accidentally, does it?
No. What Germany actually did, they used the World Cup as an opportunity to apply a change management program for the entire nation. And they realized if you want to change your image, you have to change your behavior. And to change your behavior, you have to start with your people. We need to coin a brand promise that touches the national psyche as much as it did touch the German psyche, to such an extent that people actually want to deliver the brand promise. Mr. Beki's promise of hosting the best World Cup ever is a very profound statement, because it obliges us to go out of our way to really host a great tournament, and not just host a great tournament and not just focus at the 4 weeks, but really make the time to transform our image and the image of brand Africa.
In 2004, just 2 years before their own World Cup, Germany's football was in turmoil. They'd been booted out of the European Championship in the first round, and basically nobody wanted to coach their national side. So they turned to two relatively young players who'd recently retired from the game. Jürgen Klinsmann accepted the job as coach, and Oliver Bierhoff was appointed team manager. As golden boys of German football in the 90s, they had a lot of ideas.
It was something that I think as players we have spoken a lot about what we would change or what has to happen. And so there was a bit of pressure, but we were young, we were a little bit naive in some things, but we were very enthusiastic about this possibility to lead the team.
What was your role from the start?
Perhaps my most important thing that I said, I want that Jürgen can concentrate on working with the team on the pitch. And he was so concentrated on this, and he had so many things to do that he changed so much that he said, okay, I'm happy that you speak with the media, that you speak with the sponsors and do all the political stuff. And we worked together to create an image for the team. I said, my job is also to bring the team into a level where all Germany is behind these guys.
It wasn't easy. Jürgen's leadership was about change, and his methods unorthodox for the old guard that made up the soccer fraternity. He hired an American fitness trainer who had the team working out with harnesses and bungee ropes, much to the taunts of the media. And the football-crazy Germans weren't too happy with Grinsey Klinsey either.
In Germany, when you're the head coach of the football team, you have every time these problems and discussions. We have 80 million coaches outside there who believe they know it better. And I remember also when Jürgen was before the World Cup, he said, look, at the end of the tournament, we have to look in each other's eyes and to say, we did it because we believed in it. And we don't have to say we didn't do it because we were afraid of the people, of the media, of the, I don't know what else.
But surely doubts crept in when the team lost 4-1 to Italy a mere 3 months before the tournament.
For sure. There were also doubts, and we knew before the game, a month after against the United States, that if we would lose the game, they would fire Jürgen.
It may be presumptuous, but the Germans have already booked their hotel in Berlin for the final. Jürgen Klinsmann says we're going all the way.
In the very first game, when Germany beat Costa Rica 4-2, the mood of the country changed. By the time they made the semi-finals, the man who'd been vilified as public enemy number one, Jürgen Klinsmann, was now a hero to a nation who believed he would be leading them into the finals. And in the end, they weren't depressed about not winning the cup. They celebrated third place.
For brand Germany, the best thing that could happen was not to win the World Cup. Because imagine just hosting the best World Cup ever and winning the World Cup could just have been too much. By proceeding to the semis, then losing gracefully, and then becoming what was called the world champions of the hearts. That really earned a lot of points and sympathy from everybody.
The success of World Cup 2006 wasn't confined to the stadiums. It was the huge fan festivals like here at Brandenburg Gate that really encapsulated the true spirit of the nation.
Having 2.9 million tickets, expecting at least 1 million visitors, and having millions of Germans who wanted to experience the games, they actually had to come up with a new concept, which was the fan festivals, where they actually hosted a fan festival in every single hosting city and thereby extended the reach from the 2.9 million ticket holders to 21 million, and actually created a new culture of experiencing soccer in a very celebratory and peaceful way.
Perhaps for the first time in World Cup history, women really embraced this event.
At the fan festivals, nearly half of spectators were women. And again, that created a new culture where you have much less antagonism, you had much more celebration, and you had certainly had the time to make friends. And Germany is going through a baby boom right now, basically 9-10 months after the World Cup.
I thought they were watching the soccer though. What were they up to? Despite a turbulent and deeply disturbing past, Germany also wanted to show that it's got a lot to be proud of. But they didn't want to appear arrogant, so went for a more symbolic and stylish approach.
Called Land of Ideas, the campaign under Mike isolated a singular contribution that Germany has given the world: innovation.
So we built 6 big sculptures, one for each theme. So for example, build a big car and place it in front of a touristic attraction. So the Brandenburg Gate, for example. And the story behind that was, how is the position of the German automotive industry in the global context?
From music to science to psychology, giant sculptures representing German creativity were placed around Berlin. They were photographed, filmed, and written about so much, they generated their own media.
We have to be very carefully with our history. Of course we do, but we do also have a future. And we have to build up visions for our young generation. And this is what all come out of this Soccer World Cup.
And Nicholas, whose home is now South Africa, sees the value of this type of nation building, something South Africa really needs.
Can you put a price to this? Can you say what brand Germany has done for the country in financial terms?
Oh, well, you can certainly put numbers to it. Germany has now jumped to the 2nd place in the Nation Brand Index. Also, unemployment has dropped by 20%. That's why you now find 935,000 vacancies. There are lots and lots of jobs in Germany.
Doubts over the stadiums being completed in time, concerns over visitor safety. Now, FIFA have mentioned contingency plans. And while the procedure is standard, some people are saying we should hear alarm bells ringing. There have been headlines a few times that FIFA's looking at the alternative venues. Do you see much in this?
Ich kann es nicht beurteilen. Aber wir hatten in Deutschland keine Diskussion über Ersatzkandidaten. Die hatten wir nicht. Und ich hoffe sehr, dass es sich hier nur um schlechte Öffentlichkeitsarbeit handelt und nicht um ernste Probleme.
But when FIFA President Sepp Blatter arrived here recently, he confirmed his support and that despite challenges, it will be a South African World Cup.
Everything is on track. Naturally,
We can stop here. I just want to actually see if anybody caught that one sentence that this guy from Germany said. What did they have to do in order to change the image?
To change the image of country, they need to change the behavior of the citizens, the people of country.
Excellent. I think that's really, really very, very important. On that note, I know that some of you need to catch a bus and get home safe and have fun, and see you on tomorrow. Okay, take care. Bye.